Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Nerdy 430, the podcast where comedian Tim Keck and I talk about nerdy-ish things for 30-ish minutes. My name is Kevin Bauer, and gang, it's been a while. I know the episodes have been coming out weekly for y'all, but it's been 2-3 weeks since Tim and I recorded one of these. Tim, how you doing? Any big changes in your life?
I'm doing okay, Kevin. A lot of big changes. I moved to Florida. I bought a house. I bought a boat. I got a new job. I moved to another country. I toured the world. I bought a bigger TV. I bought a smaller TV. I went hiking for the first time. I went walking for the last time, and everything in between. What's new with you, Kevin?
Been watching some Stranger Things. That's about it.
Me too. I've also been watching Stranger Things. Honestly, let's get this podcast over with so we can go back to watching Stranger Things. That podcast is coming soon. I'm telling y'all.
It is. Unfortunately, today, we are not talking about that. We are talking about Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
Yes.
Now, this is a children's movie. And the big thing that I was surprised by with the first Sonic the Hedgehog was that it was a kid's movie, but it was a pretty good kids movie that also worked as like an okay adults movie. There were a couple moments that kind of had very, childish pacing, obviously some very childish sense of humor in there, a lot of butt jokes, stuff like that. But all things considered, for a kids movie, the first one was just kind of a decent movie. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is a kids movie.
It does feel like more of a kids movie than the first one did.
Video.
Oh, I'm getting
did you hear that?
Getting a FaceTime video from your mom. Or Lisa, that's your sister.
Nice try.
Yeah, no, I did. Your sister's FaceTiming me again. I'll see if I can hang that up. She wants to talk Sonic 2. I promised her we'd watch it together, and she's pissed. I like this movie. I think it still does a pretty okay job of straddling the line. It definitely feels like much more of a kid's movie. But the first one had I think a Pixar feel to it, where it was like, oh, parents are seeing this with their kid. Right. So
yeah.
It felt like that because I don't think that many kids are excited about Sonic. Is Sonic as prevalent as he was when we were growing up? I know exactly who Sonic is. I'm not sure. I don't know any of my younger cousins or anything. They're excited about Sonic. It doesn't seem like they're playing Sonic games the same way. It's just a different thing. But I can totally see this being the kind of thing that our generation would take our kids to the movies to watch Sonic and they would have a good time. And now that it's Sonic 2, I guess they feel like, hey, we've hooked the kids. We've got them. Screw the adults. We'll just have a good time. But they do make some grown up jokes and references and things that are adult. But then there's a lot of moments when I'm like, oh, this is something a kid would like.
Oh, absolutely. It's like an aged down version of what we talked about with Ghostbusters Afterlife, where Ghostbusters Afterlife is so clearly targeted at trying to get children of the 80s children. That was 80s with an apostrophe at the very end of it, into Ghostbusters, people that were not familiar with that franchise at all, as I would say a desperate corporate bid for continued IP relevance. I think when's the last time a fucking bomb Sonic the Hedgehog game dropped, dude? Sonic Mania 2017?
I couldn't even tell you. I played Sonic on the Sega Genesis, when I was in elementary school. I don't know what else Sonic is. I think I had Sonic on GameCube. Sonic is a character in Smash Bros. I don't know what else Sonic does. But I will say I did get excited for the end credits. Did you watch the end credits? Dude. They did this whole what do you call 8-bit thing where it looked like a video game, and they basically just did the whole movie. And for some reason it really resonated with me. I don't know if I even have that deep of a connection to Sonic, but I was like, oh, that's the game. It's so cool. And it was the best part of the movie for me, honestly, was seeing the the 8-bit credits. I thought those were cool.
It's funny to me the extent they just brought that directly back from the first one, closed with the 8-bit recreation of the movie over a Kid Cudi song. I think the Kid Cudi song for the first one was better. I think I liked it more in that one. But, it's effective. I enjoyed it. I thought you were going to say you were really excited when Shadow the Hedgehog showed up because, I mean,
I was too, honestly. He was like the bad guy in the GameCube version. And I was excited when they went skiing. That I guess it's not skiing. They went snowboarding, which I remember that was in one of the games I had where they went snowboarding. And I was kind of like, there's not enough chase scenes in this at a certain point. I was like, we need more chase stuff. And then they start snowboarding and then they're running through a temple and then they fight that giant robot, which apparently is a bigger version of like a smaller character from the games. Kevin, how familiar are you with Sonic lore? Because it seems to be alluding to a deep catalog that I either am unfamiliar with or don't believe exists.
So it's interesting you bring this up because I don't think you know this about me, but I was deep into Sonic lore before I even knew lore was a thing. The first comic book I ever read was a Sonic the Hedgehog comic. And there was a run of Archie Comics that the Archie Comics umbrella owned the Sonic license. And they made comics featuring Sonic, I think from like 1994 through, it looks like they lost the license in like 2017. So they made a lot of these comics.
So it was so it was just Archie and Sonic talking about how like confusing girls are.
They did do crossovers. Archie was not canonically a part of that world though. But they did build out this giant backstory that I think is not necessarily canon. So this is the only way that I can really relate to like deep Star Wars novelization canon people like the Star Wars EU, how they had written all of these books and novels set in the universe that were set after the events of episode 6 that just became non-canon as soon as they decided they were going to make a sequel trilogy. I feel like I can relate because they're relying on a lot of stuff in this movie and in the video games that is not connected to the comics that I grew up with. So it's crazy, man. I'm no joke. I subscribed to Sonic the Hedgehog comics from the time I was 5 years old until probably 2001, 2002. So we're talking like a 7-year streak of reading comic books during formative ages. Yeah.
Did you watch the show? Wasn't there a cartoon?
There was a cartoon. The cartoon was always on a little bit too early for me. And I don't think the show necessarily shared the same canonical backstory as the comics I was reading. The comics, I mean, Sonic was one of a team of freedom fighters. There was a skunk. There was a chipmunk woman. There was a walrus. Like, I was always so confused at why these characters that I loved weren't in any of the games. And it's just because the comic book writers just kind of got to go off and do their own shit. It was like fan fiction, man.
Wow. Okay. So this must have been just shocking for you all around.
It was crazy. Look, I don't know if they added this after where I read Longclaw was not a thing in my comics. The echidnas looked pretty much dead on to the echidna tribe from the comics that I was reading. But like, yeah,
because Knuckles is a staple.
Knuckles is a staple. Knuckles' characterization here is a lot closer to like Drax than we get in any other like Sonic games or comics. They really went for like the comedically dense take on him.
Yeah, which I actually really liked. I feel like it didn't start hitting until the end. Mm-hmm. Like when they're playing baseball, I was kind of like, oh, I kind of wish he'd been hanging out with Sonic more. Yeah. Like I was kind of having a good time, like having all the characters talk and stuff. Like, I don't know. I think it's fun. I don't know why Sonic works. Sonic just really works for me. I'm not sure exactly what's going on. I think I have some affinity for Ben Schwartz because he's like a UCB guy. So I think every time I see him, I'm like kind of rooting for him, even though I really wouldn't describe myself as a UCB guy. I'm still like, yeah, go get it, Benny. Go for it. He does a lot of Ben Schwartz things where he just like starts talking and then is like the worst. And it's like, okay, go Sonic, very melodious. Idris Elba, great as Knuckles. I loved it. I was excited about him. Tails, I wasn't crazy about. And for some reason, Tails didn't look like it was in the same movie. And I don't know if I'm wrong about that. You're the animation guy, but it didn't. The animation looked way more stiff. There was like a greater contrast between Tails and like the background. I thought. I don't know if it's like the color or like they put less money. I felt like they put more money into Sonic than they did into Tails. And then the voice actor for Tails is Colleen O'Shaughnessy. O'Shaughnessy. I can't pronounce her name, and it's because she's just a voice actor. I don't want to say just a voice actor. She has a deep catalog of being a voice actor. She is deep catalog of being a voice actor. But when you have Ben Schwartz, Idris Elba, Jim Carrey, I kind of want another voice I vaguely recognize. Is that crazy to ask that for some reason something is telling me Tails on a subconscious level? I think Tails isn't as important because it's not a name or a voice that I'm familiar with.
I mean, it's a really weird choice that they went with her. I don't understand why. I mean, look, Optimus Prime, they went with the same dude. I think his name's Peter Cullen for the movies that they did in the animated. I mean, they were live action. They're animated movies from like 2007. Worked great. Like they decided to go in and commit to that. I think they got a lot of the voice actors for that. That's definitely a move. It's bizarre to split the difference.
But name another Transformers voice actor who played an Autobot.
Can't do it. And also, I feel like the only reason it works for them is because they're aliens who are also robots. So if the performance is a little bit robotic, it's like, yeah, they're a fucking robot. It's different when it's a physical living creature, And
it's consistency. It's like if you bring in Idris Elba to play Bumblebee and then Optimus Prime is some random person we've never heard of before, like, I don't know. On some level, it tells me that this isn't important. I can't name the actor that plays Tails. Why couldn't you? I was like, how fun would it be if Jenny Slate was like Tails?
Oh my God, get the fuck out of town. That'd be incredible.
Just Ben Schwartz and Jenny Slate hanging out. I was like, that would be amazing.
Holy shit, that'd be good. I was thinking McKenna Grace. I was like, if you want to go the kid angle, put McKenna Grace in there. She'd be great.
McKenna Grace would be awesome too. Like, that's like somebody you recognize when they're like posing for stuff. Like her name would be high up on the thing. I mean, Ben Schwartz is like 6th on the cast list on like Google, which I feel kind of bad for. Like he's the titular character and they're still just like, yeah, there's like 5 other people better than him, including James Marsden, which is like gotta be a real blow to the ego. You got Cyclops ahead of you. Like who gives a shit about James Marsden? I like him and everything, but it's like it couldn't get anybody else. Also, fuck that dude for being like, I guess we shouldn't be cursing on this one because maybe people will like want to listen to it with their kids, but fuck that dude because there's that other dude. Shamar Moore is like jacked and he's like, hey man, you want to go be jacked together? And James Marsden is like, there's no way I can do that. And he like high fives him. And I'm like, dude, I can tell by the muscles in James Marsden's arm when he high fives this guy and is like, there's no way I could keep up with you. I'm like, dude, you are ripped under that shirt. How dare you pretend you're not? Like, fuck you. You're an average guy. You're pretending you're an average Joe who can't keep up with these guys. James Marsden's got like 3% body fat. He works out on that body and he's lying to me. He's pretending to be an everyman. He is not. He is going for leading man. And to pretend that he is not is an affront to me. I take it personally offended that he's like, no, I'm not jacked. Fuck you, James Marsden.
The idea that he's around being like, I'm just an average guy. Just insane. They put him in like a double XL, just the dumpiest Hawaiian shirt they could find to make him look as bad as they possibly could. And guess what? He looked great.
I used to do stand up with a guy who was like a former Olympic athlete and he had like 0% body fat and was just the most physically jacked, like perfect human I've ever seen in my life. And we were doing he was doing stand up one time and he did something and his shirt came up and you could see his like 18 pack and the audience like went real quiet. Everyone was like, oh, like the air went out of the room. And they were like, I just think about that all the time where they're like, they realized he was jacked. And then it's like all of a sudden everything he said wasn't as funny anymore. So he was like always wearing baggy tees and like trying to just like, I feel like that's what James Marsden's doing to me. And it feels like a trick. I feel like he's trying to get one by me. And it's like, dude, you're not that good an actor. You're not a good enough actor to hide the veins in those arms, my dude. Like, what's going on? It's crazy. James and what is this girl, Tika Sumter, are like 2 of the most attractive people I've ever seen in my life. And I hate them both for it. I don't know. It's funny. I feel like they could have shaved half an hour off this movie easy by like just getting rid of the people. Like we don't need this wedding thing. I don't know why they think the sister is so funny. Maybe I'm like, kids must love this, but I'm like, I don't find anything she's doing funny.
I mean, like, I don't know. it was bizarre. When all that stuff was going on, I was like, what? Who is this for? Because I don't think it's funny enough for the adults. It's obviously not a relatable enough situation for the adults. Kids have no idea what the fuck is going on. They go out of their way to make the acronym for the group GUN. Like, who tonally, who's that for? Who's that one for?
Whose side are you on? Like, what do you mean? So are you pro gun? You're against gun? What does that mean? What is this take you're on? I was just thinking like, oh, she got married to this guy. And like, what? So how long were they together? Have they been like boning? Have they been like making sweet, sweet love with eye contact? And then he's like, no, I was been a spy this whole time. I was just like, I'm like, that seems like a kid premise, doesn't it? Like, really, yeah. You could get tricked, you get hoodwinked for like, a year or whatever. Like, I don't know. How long were they together? That's what I want to know. I mean, in Get Out, they make it work because it's like a quick thing. They're meeting the parents and stuff. But I mean, come on. There's more questions than answers on this. I will say I did love the boomerang joke. That was one where I was like, okay, that's pretty fun. Where she just like throws a boomerang. The boomerang takes out like 8 cards and she's like, I don't know what I did. I'm like, okay, this is good. That's fun. That's all right. Keep going. Keep on keeping on.
There are definitely some moments in this movie that just work. It's like you said, it like they're taking a lot of swings. Most of the swings are for children, but like 2 or 3 moments in this movie, I was like, that was a great bit. Like I wasn't, even though it was really strange, at no point was I like mad that it was on. I was a little bit disappointed that it was so childish, but it's like I'm watching a fucking Sonic the Hedgehog movie. I should have expected this. Best case scenario, I get to watch Sonic the Hedgehog 3 with my niece in a couple years and she'll love it. Like it's who it's for. She's going to be like 5. There you go. Perfect.
I think she would like it.
I think
you wouldn't be miserable to watch it. And I think that's what they want.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like making best case scenario children's entertainment. My buddy Eddie, I went down to visit my buddy Eddie and Emily and their son Eli, and their in-laws were there too with their baby. So we're talking, we had a 4-year-old and like a 1-year-old in the room. And, Eli's talking about Paw Patrol and all this. And he mentioned the movie and I was like, I didn't know there was a Paw Patrol movie. And all of the adults in the room raise their eyebrows at the same time and go, it's pretty good. And I think that's exactly what they're going for with Sonic. They just want all the adults in the room to be like, okay.
It's fine. I love Eddie. He's the only other person I know who watches Survivor still. Shout out to Eddie. I think it's better than average for like the parent-child thing. Like I legit thought there were like 4 or 5 great jokes in it, like good jokes. And I don't know. I had a good time. Watching this thing. Jim Carrey fucking eats in this movie. And I should have stopped dropping it. I think I'm editing this one, so they're staying in. But Jim
just
Carrey.
Replace all the F-bombs with the ring noise from Sonic the Hedgehog. Like, bling.
I mean, that would be great. We don't. Who has the time?
Not me. I gotta watch Stranger Things.
I got to get to Stranger Things. Anytime I spend editing this podcast is time I'm not watching Stranger Things. So I got to get to it. I love Jim Carrey in a weird, like off the bench role, in a weird costume, hamming it up. I mean, The Grinch That Stole Christmas is an all-time favorite in my household. Me and my sister have a weird bond over a series of unfortunate events where he plays Count Olaf and just crushes and is, I know I'm wrong, but has one of the funniest scenes I've ever seen in any movie as Count Olaf, where he's trying to like save Aunt Joe from the human eating slugs in like the lake, and she's drowning and getting killed. And I just remember we watched those outtakes like a million times as a kid. Like, man, this is amazing. Like it's funny that Jim Carrey's so funny to me. Like he's just so good at this thing. He's doing Jim Carrey stuff and I like it. I like all of it. I just like Jim Carrey. I think I'd watch Jim Carrey do anything. I'm never upset when Jim Carrey's around.
The 1-2 punch of Ben Schwartz and Jim Carrey in this movie, both perfectly cast in these roles, is enough to get you in the seat. I mean, they are like, Ben Schwartz was a perfect pick for Sonic. I can't think of anybody else off the top of my head that would bring the same fun energy to this. Adam Devine's not doing this. you know? Like there's just something
No.
that's so, it just reads fun. Like Sonic as John Ralphio just works. And yet, I mean, Jim Carrey's Dr. Robotnik somehow, in the weird twisted logic of how these kids movies work, him making all these big robots and having all these crazy ideas, it's like, this is exactly who the villain of this should be. Like, he's cartoony as hell, and they have managed to make a movie that supports that and makes it a good performance instead of something. There's a world where this is like, Jesus Christ, can you believe he did that? Look at this dark spot on Jim Carrey's career. And instead, I think it's going to be, it's like how, we know there's a lot of it that we know Tim Allen from voicing Buzz Lightyear instead of from doing raunchy 80s stand up about Coke.
Right. Like Bob Saget from Full House.
Perfect analogy. There's a whole generation that's just going to know Jim Carrey from being Dr. Robotnik.
I love it. I respect the hell out of the actors who are just like, cool, I'm making all these tough movies. And then I'm thinking Arnold Schwarzenegger, like, okay, then I'm also going to make Kindergarten Cop. Yeah. And it's like, I'm going to be famous with children. I'm going to be famous with adults. I'm going to be famous with children. Everyone is going to be excited to see me. And I think there's something to that where there's just like whole generations of people who like just love Jim Carrey as an actor, where just think he's a good time.
That's really fucking cool. And you don't see Bruce Willis doing that. I think that may be one of the secrets that like puts people into the next year. The Rock does it. The Rock did Escape to Witch Mountain or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, especially early on.
Yeah.
Well, then you hook those guys. I mean, especially, I think it's a great early career move, too, because you're getting with all these kids who are going to grow up and be into your action movies. And you're growing up with a whole generation. Yeah. I mean, I kind of was like a little too old for like the Tooth Fairy or whatever, but I was right there with him for the Mummy, too. I was ready to go.
There you go.
Another random question. Mm-hmm. Is Idris Elba, how famous is Idris Elba?
Man, I think he's more famous than the roles he chooses would suggest, because he's fucking all over the place.
I feel like Idris Elba should be one of like the most famous people in the world. Yeah. And I feel like I don't have anything to point to that's like proof of that. Like he played a small role on The Office. He was on, what does he do? Luther, which I've like never seen. I can't imagine people are like knocking down his door for Luther. He's like a minor character in Thor. I just like, there's always been talk about him playing like James Bond. Like maybe he's a little too, I mean, I don't think you can say a male actor is too old to play James Bond. That's never stopped them before. But like, I guess I just don't understand why Idris Elba, is he mom famous? Does my mom know who Idris Elba is? Why doesn't she know who he is? Why isn't Idris Elba like, I don't know. He should be a god. I don't know. He should be. Idris Elba is not as big as he should be. That's my take.
I completely agree. I feel like he might be most famous, weirdly enough, for being really attractive. Like, I think your mom knows who he is just because he has to have been people's sexiest man alive some year. There's no way he wasn't, right? Like, yeah, he's got to be on that list. But he's still out there taking acting roles. Like, he was in Star Trek Beyond. He starts off as an alien that is completely covered in prosthetics, and then like loses the prosthetics over the course of the film. But like, it's just like, I feel like he was already at a point in his career where he's kind of past being a person whose face is covered up. Like, he's the level of fame where you want him to look like him. It's really weird. But then, hey, Zoe Saldana does that too, where it's like she's still taking all these roles where she is like playing humanoid creatures, and maybe she just likes doing it. Maybe he just likes taking all these like side roles.
Zoe Saldana, Idris Elba, by the way, I Googled the list of the sexiest man. Uh-huh. Idris Elba, 34, the 34th in 2018. He's bookended by Blake Shelton and John Legend. And I got to tell you, I don't understand that. That's the weirdest sandwich of people I've ever heard. Nobody's going to tell me that Blake Shelton or John Legend are as hot as Idris Elba. That's insane. I would throw myself off a bridge to look like Idris Elba. And John Legend, like what? I guess talent is attractive. Is that what they're trying to tell us?
I mean, John Legend is like a warm sweater. John Legend is catalog hot.
he's Sears catalog hot. And then after John Legend, Michael B. Jordan and Paul Rudd. I mean, it's even those make a little more sense, but still, it's like, my God, John Legend doesn't involve, just doesn't. And Blake, also Dwayne The Rock Johnson is 2016. I mean, this list doesn't make any sense. Dwayne The Rock Johnson is not sexy. I think is just something that The Rock does not exude. I think he's just a big, lovable teddy bear.
Yeah.
I don't know. This list is weird, but you know, it goes. Okay. So 2010, Ryan Reynolds, Bradley Cooper, Channing Tatum, Adam Levine, which I mean, I guess I get, Chris Hemsworth, David Beckham, The Rock, Blake Shelton, Idris Elba, John Legend, Michael B. Jordan, Paul Rudd. There's like 3 names that don't belong on this list. It's fascinating. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, my mouth is agape right now.
We need to make this an episode, just a weird, yearly. Can we do that? Can we next time when they announce? Okay, so they've already done
completely
2021 for the 2022 People's Sexiest Man Alive. We're going to do a podcast just entirely dedicated to whoever it is. And it'll just be you and me just bitching about how they are either, you know, not hot enough or just singing their praises.
I want to do a fantasy draft. I want to come into it with a list. I want to draft Sexiest Men Alive, and then I want to see who won based on numerical rankings of the people that I actually got onto the list. I want to play fantasy People's Sexiest Man Alive with you.
We all just got to come in with our list.
I have one Sonic the Hedgehog question for you before we wrap up here.
Mm-hmm.
They list in the description of this movie on Paramount Plus, the world's favorite hedgehog. Do you think, I think it is a safe bet. I was thinking about this. I sat down and thought about this for a while. I think it is a safe bet to say that Sonic is the world's favorite hedgehog. I can't think of another hedgehog that people like more.
I can't think of a single other hedgehog, to be honest.
I'm saying. That got me thinking about other world's favorite animals. You know, world's favorite lion, probably Simba.
Or Mufasa. Is Mufasa more favorite than Simba is?
Great question, but they're both in the same property. It still proves this animated one. Then I was thinking, are there any actual animals that might be popular, like might be more popular than a fictional one? The only one that I could kind of think of was, who do you think is the world's favorite gorilla?
Harambe.
Donkey Kong or Harambe? Exactly. Who is more beloved? It's criminal to ask this with only 3 minutes left. It is the only example of an animal that I can think of, a real physical animal that might be more popular than its cartoon counterpart.
Oh my God.
Even then, I think people are going Donkey Kong.
Oh my God. I can't. That's so funny. I didn't mean to step on the punchline. It's just, that's the only answer.
You know exactly where I was going. It was
Harambe.
Right.
It feels like Harambe is of just a specific time and place, and like maybe generational, you know, like,
yeah,
it's just like, it's like saying Jeff Epstein didn't kill himself. It's like, it's just like an accepted fact, and like just an incredibly important human. Yeah, I shouldn't say human, an incredibly important like idea that exists, like is a fact to like so many people, and is just, I feel like, completely ignored by just so many others.
Oh yeah. I mean, my parents know what Donkey Kong is. They would recognize Donkey Kong. They would never recognize Harambe. I would have to explain the entire dicks out meme to them. And I don't want to do that.
Any one of my friends knows who Harambe is. Absolutely. I can't think of a single person that I'm friends with who doesn't know who Harambe is. I think Dicks Out for Harambe was one of the most impactful movements of my lifetime. I'll say some of the best memes of all time. Just seeing like Harambe in like cropped into a shot of like heaven and like clouds with like Prince and like Tom Petty. I was like, this is amazing. It's like Muhammad Ali like just hanging out with just all the greats, just hanging out with Harambe. I'll be back, guys. It's only a matter of time. It is, if you think about it. Harambe is like the what do they call it in Loki, where it's just like this is like a fixed point in time, and like everything has gotten worse since then. It's like the most pivotal point in like human civilization is like, you know, America's founded, like civil rights, whatever, like the invention of the wheel, cars, capitalism, Harambe's death, and then just like the end of humanity as we know it.
Oh my God. Dude, that's the thing. Now in 20 years, they're going to have to make a Harambe movie to make sure that kids know who Harambe is.
We'll be taking our kids to the Harambe movie.
That'll be our generational bridge. That's our Ghostbusters. That's our Sonic the Hedgehog. And that's our episode, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. We've been Nerdy for 30. Check us out on social media. Send us an email, nerdy430@gmail.com. I'll hit that intro music right now. And whatever you're listening to us on right now, give us 5 stars. It doesn't cost you anything. What are you doing? Do it right now. Come on. We'll wait. Okay, do it tomorrow. It's fine. We'll be here.
Whenever you can.
Till then,
stay nerdy, friends.
Stay nerdy.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, there is. I don't know if we're going to get cut off, but there was one other thing. I was trying to guess who the voice actor was going to be for Shadow, and I was seeing if there were any rumors online. One fan cast that I thought was fucking great was Adam Driver.
Yeah.
No? You're not biting on Adam Driver, Shadow?
I'm out on Adam Driver.
Wow. I'm taking him for my fantasy draft then.